Welcome back to Alien Love Stories, where the biggest mistakes sometimes start with brunch and end with bioluminescence. In this episode, meet Miles, professional small liar, overthinker, and a man whose orange juice just got upgraded to intergalactic honesty trap. Buckle up. Okay. In my defense, the lie was really small, like microscopic, barely a flicker in the moral compass. Here's the setup. It was Saturday morning, bright, hopeful, exactly the kind of day you expect nothing weird to happen. I was still in my pajamas, hair like a tumbleweed, and I had just sat down at the little kitchen island in Vela's apartment. She had on that green robe, the silky one that made her look like a jungle goddess with secrets, which I would later discover was not far from the truth. She was humming something alien and tuneless while pouring juice into two mismatched glasses. One was mine. The other pulsed faintly, like it knew it wasn't built for human hands. She turned, holding the glass out to me. "Here," she said, "try this one. I added something new." That should have been my first clue, but I was distracted. See, she had that look again. Soft smile, glowy skin, eyes like the Milky Way remembering a dream. She was looking at me like I mattered, and that always made me panic, because when someone actually looks at me like that, I have this reflex. I lie. Not big lies, not evil lies, just manageable ones. So when she handed me the juice and I tasted it, sour, sparkly, citrusy with a strange fizz at the end, she asked, "Well?" And I said, "It's great. I love it." And then I lit up, like literally. My neck flashed bright blue, my fingertips glowed orange. A faint shimmer rose from my chest like a firefly sigh. I said, staring down at my glowing palms. Vela blinked. "That's new." We stared at each other for a solid 5 seconds. Then I broke the silence with what was, in retrospect, a terrible idea. "I think the kitchen lights are reflecting weird." She frowned. "Miles," I panicked. "Maybe it's a new vitamin deficiency. Vitamin L?" She leaned in. "You're glowing." I looked down again. Yep, still glowing, like a 90s rave toy on its third Red Bull. "Okay," I said. Okay, I lied." Vela tilted her head. "About what?" "The juice. It's not great. It kind of tastes like battery acid with citrus ambition." Pause. Longer pause. Then Vela smiled. Wide. "Oh," I blinked. "Wait. Oh, like, good, oh? Or I just poisoned you. Oh." She set her glass down and started pacing. "You weren't supposed to lie. That's the whole point. I mean," she turned, eyebrows raised. "I said I added something new. You were supposed to be honest." "What did you add?" She walked to a high shelf, opened a tiny wooden box, and held up a small vial filled with shimmering golden dust. It sang. Not literally, but somehow I heard it. "This," she said, "is stardust." I blinked. "Like, wish upon a star stardust?" She nodded. "It amplifies resonance. Specifically, truth resonance. It was used in ancient royal courts to determine intent. Sprinkle it into any organic solution, and if the drinker speaks anything that contradicts their core emotional frequency, it creates a light leak." "A light leak," I repeated. She pointed at my glowing collarbone. "Exactly." I sat there processing. "So, you accidentally dosed me with magical truth glitter?" She winced. "Well, I wouldn't call it magical. It's biochemical, and not glitter." "But yes." I stared at the juice, then back at my hands, still glowing. "How long does this last?" "Depends on how much you drank." I held up the glass. Empty. She blinked. "Oh." The rest of the morning was a disaster. I tried to say I liked her throw pillows. My ears turned pink. I complimented her alien art piece. My eyebrows sparkled. When she asked if I was nervous about our 6-month anniversary dinner tomorrow, I said, "No, of course not." My teeth glowed. It was humiliating, like being caught by your own skin. But Vela, she watched me with this weird expression. Not mockery, not pity, almost like curiosity, maybe even affection. "This is fascinating," she murmured. "You lie so easily." I raised an eyebrow. "Gee, thanks." "No, I mean, you do it like breathing. Like you're not even trying to deceive. Just avoiding conflict? I shrugged. Lying makes life easier, but also less real. Real is messy, I muttered. She walked closer, gently touching my hand. You don't have to be real for everyone, just for me. And I felt something shift, a warmth deeper than the glow. That night I wrote down every lie I could remember telling that week. There were a lot. I'm on my way. Sorry, I lost your email. I read the book, I swear. No, I'm totally fine. Each lie flickered across my skin like a reverse Morse code, and each one made me ask, why did I lie? What was I afraid of? The next morning I tried to tell the truth more. Vela asked if I liked the new dress. I said, it's a bit sharp around the shoulders, but it makes you look like a galaxy ready to explode. No glow, she laughed, then kissed me. But then came the dinner, our 6-month anniversary, and everything fell apart. Because when she looked me in the eye across candlelight, holding my hand gently and asked, do you love me? I said, yes, and my entire body exploded in light. My collarbone was still glowing when I woke up the next morning, faintly, like an apology no one wanted to say aloud. I stared at myself in the mirror, hoping maybe it was just a bad dream, that I could splash some cold water on my face and the stardust would wash away like an embarrassing rash or a Snapchat filter gone rogue. But no, there it was, soft pink light curling beneath my skin like a guilty sunrise. I don't love her, I whispered to myself. The light dimmed. I might. The light returned, brighter. Oh, come on! Work was a disaster. I walked into the marketing office trying to act casual, like a man who hadn't spent the last 12 hours glowing like a sponsored lamp. My coworker Jamie looked up from her desk and squinted. Dude, are you wearing highlighter? New moisturizer, I lied. My right elbow flared orange. Jamie leaned back. You good? Totally fine. My knees pulsed. I'm just glowing with productivity, I added with a forced laugh. My nose tip blinked purple. She frowned. Is this some weird new mental health campaign? Before I could answer, Mr. Denton, my boss, appeared behind me like a disappointed ghost. Miles, my office. The room was too bright, not from windows, but from me. As I sat across from Mr. Denton, every time he asked me something, I lied just enough to survive and paid the price. Did you finish the ad copy for the drone toothpaste pitch? Almost, my tie glimmered. Have you scheduled the client call? Yep, my ankles hummed. Do you think you've been giving this job your all? I hesitated, then muttered, of course. My entire back lit up like a Christmas parade. Mr. Denton blinked. Miles, what is going on with your epidermis? I sighed and said the first honest sentence of the day. I drank some intergalactic bioluminescent truth juice, and now I glow whenever I lie. He stared, then nodded. I see. Well, I suppose HR will want to know if this qualifies as a disability or a religious exemption. By lunch, the whole office was whispering. I couldn't look at anyone without someone testing me. Do you actually like my playlist? Shoulders flashing. Did you really forget my birthday last week? Earlobes glowing green. Are you the one who microwaved fish on Tuesday? I said no. The break room went white. That night, I slumped into Vela's couch, face down. She sat nearby, watching calmly. You're adapting, she said. I groaned. I hate it. Why? Because it's not just that I lie. It's that I didn't even know I was lying. Until now. She tilted her head. You don't know your own feelings? I thought I did, but now... I sat up. Every sentence I say, I'm second-guessing. Every compliment, every excuse. What if I'm just running a script, a lifelong collection of say this to survive phrases? Vela was quiet for a moment. Then she said, where I come from, that script is mandatory. She told me about her planet, Zyphora, a world where communication is conducted through color-sound synchronization, where your body's glow reflects your thoughts. Your voice echoes only when you feel what you say. Lies, they don't exist, because they're physiologically impossible. And feelings, They're expected to match your environment. Happy at celebrations, grieving at funerals, proud in public, fearful only in private, no more, no less. Everything is visible, she said, all the time. Emotion is a public contract. What if you don't feel the right thing? I asked. She paused. I didn't. Not always. She told me about her sister's funeral, the crowd glowing blue, mourning in perfect resonance. But Vela, she didn't cry. Not because she didn't love her, but because her grief was quiet, twisted, delayed. She felt guilt and confusion and shame, but none of those shone the right color, so the system rejected her, labeled her as disharmonic, and within a week, she was sent into non-emotive exile. Planet Earth. I sat there stunned. You were punished for grieving the wrong way? She nodded. I thought your world had no lies. We don't, but we have expectations, and that's worse. She stood, walking to the window. The stardust, I took it from the old border labs, the last trace of the original emotional amplifiers. I wanted to feel something unfiltered, something that didn't come with rules. She turned to me. You were my experiment. That hurt, but only because it was true, and because deep down, I had wanted to believe I was something more. So, I said softly, what happens now? She shrugged. We keep glowing. Later that night, I tried to tell myself it was okay, that everything was under control, that I could handle it. But when I whispered into the dark, I'm not scared, the ceiling turned gold. Here's what no one tells you about radical honesty. It's not just hard, it's confusing. Like, mind-breaking, ego-shaking, who am I if I'm not pretending a little? Kind of confusing. Because the thing is, when you spend your whole life weaving tiny lies, not malicious, just survival-based, they start to become you. Little phrases, auto-responses, social lubrication, like, I'm good. No worries. I totally understand. I got this. They're not false. Not exactly. They're just not fully examined until now. Because now every time I said one of those things, my skin lit up. Not bright like before, but in little glows, flickers, like warning lights on a failing spaceship. And the worst part? I couldn't tell when I was lying until I'd already said it. Friday night, game night at Liam's house. 7 of us around the table. Friends, co-workers, college roommates. The theme, truth or dare. Because of course, I told myself I'd sit quietly, observe, not draw attention. But Jamie, of course it's Jamie, leaned forward and asked, Miles, be honest. Do you actually like hanging out with us? And I said, of course I do. And my cheeks turned yellow. There was a beat of silence, then howling laughter. Oh my God, said Liam, wiping tears. He lit up like a guilty lantern. It's like a mood ring with trust issues, someone added. Another voice. Bro, say you love pineapple on pizza. I love pineapple on pizza. Blink, blink, blink. Screams of laughter, phones out, recordings rolling. I excused myself. Bad idea. Because in my haste, I knocked over a bowl of guacamole, crashed into the speaker stand, and fell onto the shag rug. And when I tried to stand, someone shouted, say you meant to do that. And I, being an idiot, said, I totally did that on purpose. And the room, I swear to God, dimmed, except for me. I was glowing so hard the cat hissed and ran under the couch. And that was the moment someone uploaded it. Within hours, the clip had a title, The Glow Bro, When Lying Goes Luminous, number, truth leak number, human lamp number, emopathic fail. By morning, it had 4.6 million views. By lunch, my inbox had emails from 2 talk shows and a company offering to sponsor me for emotionally honest LED signage. I deleted everything. Vela tried to make me feel better. This isn't bad, she said. They're laughing with you. No, I snapped. They're laughing at me. She flinched, and I hated that. I hated that I made her flinch. But I hated even more that I didn't know why I snapped. Was I embarrassed, hurt, ashamed? I didn't know. I just knew that when I said, it's fine, My shoulders flashed gold again. That night, I sat in my apartment alone in the dark. No mirrors, no lights, just me, and the faint ambient glow of my betrayal to myself. I tried to remember a time I'd said something, anything, that didn't come with a script, and I couldn't. Not a single sentence from the past year. Every conversation, every laugh, every "I miss you," "I'm happy," "I want this," all of it felt performed. And I realized something terrifying. I didn't know what I believed anymore. Not because I'd hidden it, but because I'd never asked. Saturday morning, I decided to change that. I walked into a coffee shop I hated and told the barista I didn't like their signature drink. She laughed. "Cool, neither do I." I emailed my boss and said I needed a break. He replied, "It's about time." I told my mom I wasn't okay. She called me crying. It hurt, it helped. It glowed a little, but less with every word. Then I saw Vela. She was sitting in the park, sketching something. Not drawing, not really, just shapes, waves, light patterns. I sat next to her, said nothing. She didn't look up. Finally, I whispered, "I don't know what's true about me anymore." Still not looking, she said, "That's okay. Most people don't." I blinked. "You don't?" She smiled faintly. My whole life was defined by clarity, literal transparency, but I never questioned who I was. I just reflected what was expected. And now, I'm learning to enjoy fog. We sat in silence. Then she reached into her bag, pulled out something. A small, sealed bottle of deep gray dust, not shimmering, not golden. "Anti-stardust," she said. "The antidote." My chest tightened. "You had it this whole time?" She nodded. "I didn't offer it before because I thought you'd want to know yourself first. And now?" She looked at me. Software. Serious. "It's your choice." I stared at the bottle. My fingers itched to take it, to go back to before, to stop glowing every time I faltered. But something in me whispered, if you turn this off now, you might never know who you really are. And so, I shook my head and handed it back. Vela smiled, then leaned in and whispered, "Then let's glow through the mess. Together." We met in the subway, not the train, the actual tunnel, abandoned line, no cameras, no signal, just flickering fluorescent lights and the steady hum of water behind old bricks. She was already there when I arrived, wearing that hooded cloak again, the one that made her look like a cosmic fugitive in a romance novel. "What's going on?" I asked. She didn't speak. Not right away. Just handed me a small black cube. It buzzed faintly, like a distant song trapped inside. "Message from Zephora High-Tone Council," she said. I stared at the cube, then at her. "What did you do?" Vela exhaled and played the message. A voice spoke, cold, flat, genderless. "Vela KHR7 Alpha, you are hereby summoned to return to harmonic jurisdiction for violation of tone regulation 9.03. Unauthorized exposure of non-native species to resonance class emotional catalysts. You are charged with cross-species emotional destabilization and activation of forbidden waveform class dust." I blinked. "Wait, they know about me?" She nodded. "They think I used you as a test subject." "You kinda did," I said. She winced. "Fair point." "But it wasn't malicious," she added quickly. "It was curiosity, affection, a mistake." "Yeah, well, it's glowing all over the internet now." She sighed. "That's the problem." She led me deeper into the tunnel until we reached a strange alcove. Concrete peeled away to reveal a chamber of soft blue light. Floating in the center, a tone anchor. Imagine a tuning fork mixed with a jellyfish in a cathedral. It pulsed slowly, like a heart that forgot how to beat. "This was the original drop site," she said, "where the last of the outlawed stardust was hidden before they scrubbed the archives." I walked around the anchor slowly. Why was it banned? Vela sat on the ground, pulling her knees to her chest. Because it gave people too much control over uncontrolled emotions. I sat beside her. Meaning? Meaning, people stopped playing the correct emotions at the correct times. She looked at me. There was a period in Xipheran history called the Resonant Drift. One by one, citizens began glowing out of sync, mourning during weddings, laughing during funerals, saying I'm fine and showing full red rage in their skin. Sounds like being human, I said. She smiled weakly. Yes, but for a society built on public harmony, it was chaos. The system collapsed. The council restored order by eliminating raw resonance and banning everything that could amplify it, including stardust. She nodded. And now, because of me, it's spreading again. I leaned against the cold wall, trying to absorb it all. So what happens if you go back? They'll erase my chord pattern, strip me of emotional memory. I'll exist, but not as me. I felt a chill run through me. And what if you don't go back? They'll come here. We sat in silence. The tone anchor thrummed softly, a sound like the universe clearing its throat. Then I asked the question I'd been avoiding all week. Do you actually love me? She didn't answer, just stared at the light. Then whispered, I don't know what that word means. Not fully, but I want to understand it. Then say it, I said. I'm afraid I'll glow. Good. She turned, took my hand, held it gently. I love you, she said, and nothing happened. No glow, no shimmer, just silence, and her breath catching. Maybe I really do, she whispered. And then the tone anchor screamed. A blast of blue energy hit the chamber walls. I grabbed Vela and shielded her instinctively. The anchor cracked, and a voice erupted from inside, echoing, layered, old. The note has returned. We froze. The anchor's light flickered like thunder, made visible. Stardust lives. The song cannot be controlled. Correction begins. And then a portal opened, right there, behind the anchor, a spiral of harmonic code and shimmering dust. Through it stepped a being of pure tone, shifting frequencies, a cloak of broken chords trailing behind. Vela gasped. That's a council extractor. It didn't speak, just lifted a hand and pointed at Vela. Emotional virus, containment required. I stepped in front of her. You'll have to go through me. The being tilted its head. Then calmly, you glowed when you lied to her. I hesitated. Vela looked at me. I said, yes, I did no glow. Just a quiet, aching honesty. But I stayed. The being paused. For the first time, uncertain. Then it lowered its hand. The virus has spread too far. Containment impossible. But be warned, the song always has a price. And with that, it stepped backward and vanished. The portal closed, and the tone anchor dimmed. We sat there a long time. No light, no sound, just stillness. Then Vela whispered, I'm scared. And I replied, so am I. No glow, just truth. And maybe for the first time, that was enough. We should have stayed underground. But the air had gotten thick after the tone anchor collapsed, heavy with the smell of scorched ozone and something older, sourer, like burnt regret. Vela pulled me up the maintenance ladder through a manhole and into the woods behind the city. She moved fast, silent, like she'd memorized this route long ago. I stumbled after her, still dazed, my hands trembling with leftover vibration. Where are we going? I hissed. Somewhere quiet, she whispered. Somewhere the frequencies don't carry. Carry what? She paused and looked at me. You. The deeper we went, the stranger the forest became. The leaves hummed faintly when you stepped on them. The trees whispered in spirals, backward, as if rewinding some forgotten conversation. Even the shadows flickered, like they weren't sure where to land. And me? I was glowing. Not a flicker, not a blush. Full body phosphorescence. Every part of me pulsed with soft color. My spine, orange guilt. My throat, lilac avoidance. My chest, a terrifying blend of green and red. Conflicted affection. I looked like a sad disco ball after a breakup. Try to calm down, Vela said urgently. I am calm. My shoulder blades flashed pink. She shot me a look. Okay, I muttered. I'm trying to be calm. We found shelter under a large semi-hollow tree that resonated in F sharp when the wind hit it. Vela wrapped her cloak around me. Don't move, she said. Don't think anything you don't mean. Super easy, I muttered. Barely an inconvenience. Miles, she warned. I exhaled, but it was too late. They had found us. At first I thought it was fog, but it moved wrong. It circled, coiled, shimmered faintly. Not with light, but with absence. Then the shapes appeared. Tall, thin, gliding rather than walking. No faces, no mouths. Just long arms that trembled slightly, as if sniffing the vibrations in the air. Vela's eyes widened. Emotion leeches, she whispered. They shouldn't be here. What do they want? They eat conflicted energy, especially from liars. They follow resonance trails left by internal dissonance. I swallowed. Hard. Oh! There were 6 of them, drifting closer, each one letting out a faint, chittering hiss like glass being shaved with teeth. My hands glowed brighter. I tried to stop it, like flexing muscles you don't have. But the more I tried not to lie to myself, the more I lit up. I said, I'm okay, and my stomach pulsed blue. I said, I'm not scared, and my throat sparked yellow. One of the creatures twitched. They were listening, tuning in, and moving faster. Vela grabbed my face. Listen to me, she said. You have to stop lying. I'm not lying. Then why are you glowing? I shook my head, panicked. I don't know. I don't know what's true anymore. One of the leeches launched. Vela shoved me aside, took the hit. It latched onto her back like a shadow made of needles, and her whole body flickered. Not glowing, but draining. I screamed, ran to her, tried to pry it off. It hissed again, but not with sound, with emotion. A blast of guilt and unspoken fear hit me like a memory punch. I staggered, fell, and then I said it. Not out loud, but from somewhere deeper. I don't know how to love her, but I want to. And that's the truth. The glow stopped. Dead. Every color in my body dimmed. The leech paused, confused. And Vela? She turned, eyes wide. You said it, she whispered. I nodded. I don't love you the way you want yet, but I'm not faking anything anymore. The leech shrieked and disintegrated. The others paused, their heads tilted, scanning, but nothing glowed. I was clean. I stood, faced them. I lied because I was scared of losing control, I said. No glow. I lied because I didn't trust I was worth loving. No glow. I lied because I thought love had to be perfect. Still nothing. And then they retreated, melting back into the trees like unfinished thoughts. We collapsed beside each other, silent, shaking, covered in dust and breath, and the echoes of what could have been a goodbye. Vela leaned her head on my shoulder. You're glowing, she said. I panicked. Where? She smiled. In a good way. The video hit 13 million views by the time we made it back to civilization, and that was just on EarthNet. On Xylithian broadcast grid, 27.4 million, and trending under, The Glow Confession, Just Human Lie Breaker, Sharsher Emotion Unlocked, Narshish My Girlfriend, Was Bit by a Soul Leech. The last one was not helpful. I don't even know who filmed it. Maybe one of the emotion leeches left a residue pulse. Maybe the forest itself was listening. Maybe Vela's cloak had surveillance tech she forgot to disable. The point is, the moment I said those words, that I didn't know how to love her but wanted to try, it was everywhere. And the universe lost its mind. Talk shows called me brave. Pundits called me dangerous. The Xypheron Council labeled me an emotional contaminant of level 4 dissonance. Thrix, of course, tried to monetize it. He showed up wearing a shirt that said, "Glow with it or go without it," and sold branded water bottles with phrases like, "I lied about hydrating." This is not sparkling water, but I am. It was a mess, and it only got worse. People started asking me to lie. Not maliciously, just to see it happen. Do you like my cooking? Tell me I'm hot. Say you don't miss your ex. And when I glowed, they laughed. like I was some kind of gimmick mirror for emotional insecurity. But others weren't laughing. Others saw something else in the video, something more dangerous, and one of them found me. It happened at 2:36 a.m. I was on the roof, alone, trying to rehearse a job interview that was definitely going to fail, and trying not to glow about how anxious I was. That's when the air around me flickered. Not visually, but emotionally, like someone had muted reality for a moment. And then they were there. 3 figures, cloaked, silent. Each wore a mask that displayed scrolling text, one word at a time. "We don't just lie." I said. "Hi?" They didn't speak, not with sound. But one of the masks shifted to the unspoken greet you I'd heard rumors, a rogue network of emotional engineers, ex-council defectors, and radical therapists, operating in the cracks between civilizations. Their goal? Not revenge, not chaos, clarity, absolute, involuntary, emotional transparency. And apparently, I was their new favorite icon. The tallest of them stepped forward. Mask flickered. "You gave them truth. We want to give it to everyone. Permanently." They opened a small case. Inside, a vial of stardust, bigger than anything Vela had ever shown me. I backed up. "Whoa, no, thanks. I'm already glowing more than an overachieving firefly." "Not for you. For the planet," I stared. "You want to seed this into Earth's water supply?" ARIR, satellite waves. Global emotional tuning. Vela appeared in the stairwell, barefoot, breathless, holding a resonator pulse grenade the size of a grapefruit. "Step away from him," she said. The unspoken didn't move. They only flickered. "He is already one of us. Let him choose." And they vanished, just like that, leaving behind nothing but static in my chest and a single question. What if they're right? Back downstairs, Vela paced our apartment like a caged metronome. "This is what I was afraid of," she muttered. "They think you're a prophet." "I'm not," I said. "I'm just a guy who accidentally turned into a lie lamp because I panicked during brunch." "You exposed a fundamental flaw in our system," she snapped. "They want to hijack your existence and turn it into a revolution." "Would that be so bad?" She stopped, dead still. "What?" I took a breath, carefully, deliberately. "I'm not saying I agree, but what if people should be more honest, more visible? What if we'd all be better off if we had no choice but to be real?" Her voice dropped. "Do you really think that?" I hesitated. My chest glowed faintly. She turned away. The silence that followed was the kind that a relationship folds itself inside, like a letter never sent. I wanted to say, "I didn't mean that," but I wasn't sure if I did, and I wasn't sure if not meaning meant I was lying. That was the worst part. The uncertainty had become louder than the truth. Later, as she slept beside me, a rare moment of stillness, I looked at my reflection in the mirror and asked, "Do I want everyone to be honest?" My jaw glowed, but just a little. I asked again, "Do I want me to be honest?" My eyes shimmered. More. And finally I whispered, "I don't know how to live without pretending." My whole chest went dark, not glowing, just quiet, real. We didn't speak for 3 days. After the visit from the unspoken, everything became quieter, not calmer, just suspended, like a breath held too long, like a song waiting for its next chord. Vela kept to the balcony, watching the stars like they were guilty of something. I stayed on the couch, eyes flicking between my phone screen and my reflection, each glowing, but in different ways. She didn't ask what I was thinking, and I didn't volunteer, because both of us were afraid of what the answers might cost. On the 4th day, she cooked breakfast, which was weird. Vela didn't usually cook. She infused. She composed flavors. She harmonized nutrient tones. But this morning, it was eggs and toast. Simple, grounding, almost human. She slid the plate toward me, sat across the table and said, "I need to ask you something." I nodded, knowing what was coming. She took a breath, not like someone preparing for an answer, but like someone preparing to end something. And then softly, "Do you love me?" My first instinct was panic. My second was strategy. My third, finally, it was honesty. So I looked her in the eyes and said, yes. And that's when my entire body exploded in light. Not a flicker, not a warm, bashful hue, a full-body multi-spectrum eruption. Color danced across my skin like a true seizure. Every frequency I'd ever felt, shame, fear, hope, longing, guilt, all of it came alive at once. Even my teeth glowed. Vela didn't move. She just stared at me, expression unreadable. I tried again. I mean it. My throat pulsed bright violet. I want to love you. My ribs went gold-green pink. I think I do. My jaw buzzed red. She whispered, stop. I'm trying. Miles, she said gently. You're hurting us both. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was devastating. Because I wasn't lying. Not exactly. I wasn't trying to deceive. But the stardust didn't care about intent. It responded to certainty, and I had none. She stood slowly, walked to the window, and for the first time in our months together, I saw her light flicker. Not in glow, in absence. A dimming of something radiant, like a star collapsing quietly. Then she said, I used to think love was like a chord. Simple, predictable, resonant. She turned. But with you, it's like noise. My chest tightened. Noise isn't always bad, I said. It is where I come from. I stood too fast, almost knocked over the table. I'm trying, I said. Isn't that what matters? Trying isn't truth. Her voice didn't rise, didn't accuse, just stated. And somehow that hurt more. I'm doing everything I can, I pleaded. I gave up the antidote. I faced those creatures. I let the world watch me glow like a fraud. All of that, wasn't it enough? Her eyes softened. I didn't ask you to perform, Miles. I'm not. I stopped, because I was glowing again, a faint shimmer across my temples, and we both knew what it meant. She walked toward the door, not storming, not fleeing, just leaving. Before either of us said something that would break everything for real. Her hand hovered over the doorknob, and she said, I don't need you to love me yet. I looked up, but I needed to believe you'd know when you did. She left, and I sat, in silence. The kind that didn't invite music. The kind that tasted like missed chances. Like feelings you almost had. Like the edge of something that could have been everything. If only you'd been ready. That night, I didn't glow. Not because I wasn't lying, but because I didn't say anything at all. I didn't pack much. One change of clothes. A bottle of neutral tone lotion to dim the glow. Vela's empty stardust vial. The one she'd left on the kitchen counter like a question. And the last message she sent, don't come looking for me unless you're looking for you first. So I left the city, the headlines, the memes, the glow, and I walked. First stop, my mom's house. She greeted me like I hadn't changed at all. How's the girl? She asked over coffee. I started to answer, paused, then tried again. She's somewhere between leaving and waiting. Mom didn't press. She never did. She just refilled my cup and said, I saw the videos. I looked up. Oh, I'm proud of you, she added. That surprised me. I smiled half-hearted, then said, you know, I've been thinking about truth, what it means, what it costs. She nodded as if she'd been expecting that question for years. And then softly, I lied to you for 6 months. I blinked. What? About the treatments, my health, the reason I missed your birthday. My hands twitched. No glow, she said, smiling gently. I'm not you. I laughed, then stopped. You did it to protect me? She shrugged. I did it because I wasn't ready to be seen weak, because I wanted you to worry less, because I was scared, and because I love you. I nodded, and for the first time I didn't judge the lie. I just held it, like something fragile, something earned. Next stop, a motel in the middle of nothing. The manager, grumpy, chain-smoking, old, asked me, You that glow boy? I winced. Kind of. She handed me a key. Room 3 has bad plumbing, but good mirrors. You'll like it. That night I heard someone crying through the wall. A couple. Arguing, not screaming. Words muffled, but emotions clear. I pressed my ear gently to the wall, then knocked. They let me in. Out of curiosity, or loneliness, or both. Married 5 years. Happy, on paper. But he had dreams he never voiced, and she had doubts she never wanted confirmed. I tell him I'm fine, she said, because if I'm not, he'll change, and I don't want to be the reason he changes. He added, and I tell her I'm fulfilled, because she deserves to believe in what we built. They looked at each other, not angry, just quietly afraid. They turned to me. You'd glow just sitting here, she said. I smiled. I already am. Later that night, I stared at the stars and whispered, I don't want to be a symbol anymore. The air didn't respond, but neither did it judge. A week into my wandering, I found a diner in the middle of a desert. Old jukebox. Neon sign flickering with the word HUM instead of HOME. Inside, a waitress with tired eyes served me lemon pie. You look like you're running from something, she said. I am. Want to talk about it? I don't know what I'd say. She nodded. That's okay. You don't have to explain pain for it to be real. That stuck with me. In a town called Nocturne, I met a man who claimed to be allergic to honesty. He wore 7 layers of emotional dampeners and handed out pre-written apology cards. I lied to my brother for 20 years, he said. Why? To protect our childhood. I didn't ask more. I just sat, listened, and somewhere in that shared silence, we glowed together. Him in fear, me in compassion. Eventually, I stopped keeping track of days. I stopped trying to fix the glow, and instead, I started watching when it didn't happen. Small moments. A kind laugh to a stranger. A breath before answering. A memory I let arrive without editing. Those didn't glow. They just settled. And one night, in a place that wasn't on any map, under a sky that hummed faintly like it missed me, I whispered, I think I'm ready to see her again. And for the first time in weeks, no part of me lit up. The planet wasn't listed, not on any star map, not even in Thrix's sketchy black market navigation archives titled Places You Probably Shouldn't Go. I found it by accident, or maybe gravity, or maybe something deeper. A place known only through WhisperNet forums by those who'd walked away from too much attention. Veracen. They called it the Planet of Forgotten Lights. Because here, no one glowed. Not because they couldn't, but because they refused. The landing process was strange. My shuttle powered down halfway through descent. No need for guidance, a soft voice whispered through the static. Here, all arrivals are felt. I blinked, and then stillness. The planet wasn't dark exactly. It was muted, like someone had turned the brightness down on existence. No street lamps, no stars, only soft, perpetual twilight, as if the world had chosen never to fully wake up. The air felt thick with memory, and something else, permission, to not perform, to not explain, to simply be. I walked for what felt like hours, through silent meadows, past houses with curtains always drawn, past children playing games with no winners. No one greeted me, but no one turned me away, until I reached the observatory of unspoken goodbyes. And there she was. She stood on a ledge, hair loose, hood down, skin no longer shimmering, no stardust in her veins, no light on her face, just Vela, as if she had peeled off every layer that ever tried to be seen. She didn't turn as I approached, didn't flinch, didn't flee. She simply said, "You found me." I stood beside her, not too close, not too far, just enough, and whispered, "I wasn't looking for you." She didn't move. "Then why are you here?" I answered without thinking, "To not be anywhere else." No glow, but I felt something inside me hum. She finally turned, faced me, and for the first time I saw her without any echo. No performance, no expectation, no fear of being wrong, and somehow, she was more luminous than ever, even in the dark. We didn't talk about the council, or the unspoken, or the stardust. We just sat, on cold stone, listening to the sound of forgetting. Eventually I said, "I'm not fixed." She nodded. "I didn't come here to be rescued." "I didn't come to rescue." "Then why are we here?" "To remember that love isn't something you arrive at." She looked at me, eyes soft, waiting. "It's something you walk beside, even when you're not sure where it's going." We sat longer, letting that be enough, letting the silence tell its story. And then she reached into her coat, pulled out the last crystal of stardust, dull, inactive, but still holding something ancient. She held it up between us and said, "I've kept this, not because I wanted to glow again, but because I wanted to know if you still want me even when you didn't." I took it gently, held it, felt its weight, and whispered, "I don't know if I love you." She nodded. "I know, but I know I want to learn how." She closed her eyes and leaned her forehead to mine. And there, in that hush, in that quiet refusal to run, I felt something begin again. Not fireworks, not glow, just gravity. Later that night, we lit no fire. We said no vows. We just made tea, shared silence, and let our hands touch across the table. And in that moment, for the first time, neither of us needed the light. We didn't get to choose to testify. The summons came as a dream, shared, woven into both our sleep cycles. Vela woke up gasping. I woke up glowing. A voice echoed in both our minds. "The emotional accord has been convened. You carry the oldest spark. You will decide." By the time we opened our eyes, we were already in orbit. A crystalline chamber floated in space, tethered to nothing, reflecting nothing, but full of everyone. Representatives from 57 systems, emissaries of emotion-based civilizations, ambassadors of logic-based orders, even one sentient tear encased in resonance glass. Each came not to vote, but to listen, to us. At the center of the chamber stood the Elder of Nuance, a being shaped entirely by contradiction. One half glowing, one half void. It spoke in chords. "You have reawakened the dust. You have proven its power. Now you must choose." A holographic model of Earth hovered between us. Above it, two symbols, a swirl of expanding stardust and a lock. The Elder explained. Option 1, release stardust globally. Everyone becomes incapable of lying, their bodies glowing in response to emotional contradictions, a new era of involuntary truth. Option 2, seal stardust again, burn the formula, dismantle the anchor, bury the resonance tech, and leave emotion to evolve naturally, imperfectly. I turned to Vela. She was calm, still. Then the Elder asked, "Do you speak for humanity?" I hesitated. "I don't know if I can." "Then who do you speak for?" I looked at her and said, "For the part of us that wants to stop performing." Vela stepped forward. Her voice didn't rise. It settled. "I was raised to believe emotions should be pure, controlled, visible." She glanced at me. "Then I met someone whose emotions were messy, conflicted, changing, sometimes hidden from even himself." A few murmurs. She continued. "And instead of fearing that, I loved it." The Elder turned to me. "Miles, do you believe truth should be mandatory?" I took a breath, then said, "I believe truth should be invited, not enforced." "Explain." I gestured to the image of Earth. "If you give stardust to everyone, yes, people will be honest, but not by choice. They'll glow because they have to, not because they want to share." I turned. "Emotion is only powerful when it's offered, not extracted." The council stirred. Some nodded. Others whispered in frequencies I couldn't understand. Then a being made of vapor rose, their voice like steam against a mirror. "We were lied to for centuries. Our rivers sang false comfort. Our leaders echoed hollow love. Should we not finally see each other?" Vela responded, "You deserve truth, but not at the cost of free feeling." Then Serene appeared, uninvited, projected in a ripple of unclaimed light. "I was made of dust," they said. "I became a song." They looked at me. You gave me a choice, Miles. You let me become what I chose to feel. Then turned to the council. And that's all anyone should get. The chamber dimmed. The vote was silent. No numbers. Just resonance shifts. After what felt like hours, the elder's voice returned. The dust will be returned to rest. A hum rippled through the air. And just like that, the choice was made. As the chamber dissolved, the elder offered us each a small shard. Keep it, they said. The last stardust. It belongs not to power, but to memory. Back on the ship, Vela sat beside me. Quiet, not somber, just softened. I held the shard. It glowed faintly, but only when I held it with both hands. Maybe, I said, that's the lesson. She tilted her head. What is? That truth doesn't live in one hand. It takes two, willing to carry it, even when it's heavy. She smiled and held the shard with me. That night, we didn't talk about what came next. We didn't need to. For once, we had nothing left to prove and everything left to feel. Coming back was quiet. No press, no parades, no glowing headlines. Just a shuttle and two people, holding one crystal and something more fragile than any element, a shared silence that finally didn't feel awkward. Vela leaned her head against the window. I stared at the planet below. Earth looked smaller now, not because it had changed, but because I had. We didn't go back to the city. Instead, we rented a small place near the edge of a coastal village. Wood walls, salt air, a garden that hummed with bees, and the sound of second chances. There was no stardust here, no glowing, no movement-triggered honesty. Just life. The first time it happened again, I thought I imagined it. I was brushing my teeth. Vela peeked into the bathroom, already in her sleep shirt, hair up in a messy crown that looked too royal to be accidental. Did you use the last of the toothpaste? She asked. I replied through foam. Nope. And then, my collarbone blinked, faintly, like an old ember remembering fire. I froze, looked down. It was gone. A single pulse, barely noticeable, but real. She saw it too, raised an eyebrow, said nothing, just smiled, and walked away. It happened again a few days later. A neighbor brought us soup, asked if I liked it. I said yes, and the tip of my index finger twitched with soft gold. I tried to dismiss it. Stress, maybe. Some residual metabolic echo. But then it happened a third time, and a fourth, always small, always subtle, and always when I wasn't being entirely real. I didn't tell Vela. At first, part of me wanted to pretend it was nothing, that the glow was gone, that I was normal again. But every time I avoided it, my palms got warmer, not hot, just aware, as if my skin had grown ears, and truth was no longer a stranger it could ignore. One evening, we sat on the porch, watching dusk fold into itself. The sea hummed in that way only oceans and old songs can. I turned to her, held out my hand. It flickered, soft blue. She looked, then at me. You're still glowing. I nodded. I don't understand it. Maybe it's not stardust, she said. Then what is it? She leaned her head on my shoulder. Maybe it's you. I wanted to believe that, but part of me still worried. If I was still glowing, had I really changed? Or had I simply learned to lie more carefully? I didn't say that aloud, but I didn't have to, because the back of my neck warmed slightly. She chuckled. Thinking something you won't say? Maybe. A pause, then. Do you want me to guess? I smiled. No. Glow, very faint. She kissed my temple. Later that night, I sat alone in the garden, held the sealed crystal in my palm. It didn't react, didn't hum, didn't judge, but something inside me did. And then, I whispered, I think I'm scared of being fully seen. Even now, even by her. The crystal didn't move, but the grass around me did, glowing just a little, just enough. Vela joined me in the dark, sat beside me. No questions, no expectations, just presence. She reached over, touched my hand, watched the faint shimmer, then said, You're not broken. I know. You're not lying. I know, but you're still afraid. I nodded and whispered, I think that's the part of me that'll always glow. She took the crystal from my hand, held it between us, then buried it in the soil. I don't need the dust, she said. I have you. The next morning I made coffee. She watched me sip it, asked, do you like it? I paused, said, it tastes like burnt honesty. She laughed, and the table glowed, just a little. Enough. The sign outside read, no filter. Underneath in smaller print, juice that doesn't lie unless you do. We didn't advertise, didn't need to. People came, not because they knew the story, but because somehow they felt it. We built the place ourselves. Wood counter, old Galaxy crate shelves, a menu that changed daily, written in chalk dust that shimmered when touched. Each drink had a name, but no description. You pick by feel, or curiosity, or impulse. We offered no recommendations. Only one disclaimer, taped beside the tip jar. Side effects may include warm fingers, sudden clarity, unexplained honesty. Hanin, minor glowing drink at your own emotional risk. The juice itself? Still citrus-based, still mildly fizzy, but now laced with a non-stardust harmonic compound Vela engineered from local fruit and emotional trace waves. It didn't force truth. It just reflected alignment. If you said something untrue, the drink might change color, or your fingertips might hum, or the air around your head might vibrate like a memory trying to be remembered. One customer, a middle-aged man in a business suit, walked in, ordered the maybe, kiwi, lime, whisper of regret. He sat down, called someone, said, I'm happy. The drink turned gray. He stared, hung up, waited, then called again and said, I think I'm lost. The drink brightened. He smiled, didn't cry, just nodded, and left a $20 bill in the jar with no note. Another time, a teenage girl ordered, whatever happens. She told her friends she wasn't in love. Her shadow glowed. They held hands on the way out, and every morning before we opened, Vela would pour 2 small glasses, one for her, one for me. We'd clink gently, sip, look at each other, and if neither of us glowed, we smiled. People asked us if we used real stardust. We always said no. They asked if we were that couple from the videos. We said maybe. Someone once asked, do you still glow? I said, only when I lie, and lit up just a little. They laughed, left a huge tip. We kept the last shard of real stardust buried under the lemon tree out back. It never grew fruit, only tiny glowing leaves. Vela said it was enough. I agreed, even when I didn't, especially then. One evening as we closed, she asked, are you happy? I paused, not because I doubted, but because I wanted to be sure. And I said, I'm learning how to be. She leaned in, kissed me, and whispered, that's the best truth I've ever heard. Outside, the neon sign flickered for a moment, no filter, then pulsed once, soft blue, not because of magic, not because of a mistake, just because someone had said something real. If you drank a juice that glowed every time you lied, would you still say, I'm fine? Would you still say, I'm over it? Would you still say, I don't love them anymore? Or would you let yourself flicker just a little? Tell us in the comments, what lie would you want the juice to reveal first? And don't forget, if this story made your heart glow, even quietly, like, subscribe, share. Next time on Alien Love Stories, my alien girlfriend mixed stardust in my juice, now I glow every time I lie, is followed by my alien chef friend cooked pasta in a dying star. Now my dinner table has its own gravity.